Hello, and welcome to Rough Edges. I'm your host, Sarah Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create a voice for those who wish to discover more about these topics. This podcast will not only shed light on mental health issues, but will also reveal the intersection between faith and mental illness. I pray that these themes will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. At the time of this recording, it is Easter Sunday, so I want to wish a very happy Easter to all of you, and also a very happy Resurrection Sunday to those that celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I am one of those people, so happy Resurrection Sunday to all. Today, I'm going to switch up the formula a little bit, and instead of having a guest, I'm going to share some reflections and lessons that I've learned since I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder in January of 2021. I pray that these lessons would bless you and also that they would provide some enlightening teachings to help you in your healing journey. So without further ado, here are 10 lessons that I've learned in my mental health journey. Lesson number 1. My diagnosis is not indicative of my character. So this lesson is very important to me because for so long I believed that just because I have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder that my character was tainted as a result of me having a mental illness. I used to believe that just because I had a mental illness, that meant that my character was scarred and that I didn't have anything good to offer to the world. I now realize that that couldn't be further from the truth. I know that my diagnosis is just some added information to tell me what's going on in my mind and is not an indicator of who I am as a person. I only have bipolar disorder. I am not bipolar disorder. So that's something that I definitely learned along the way. Lesson number 2. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to make it through. So for those of you who know me well, you know that I am a perfectionist through and through. You know that I always want everything to be perfect, and I always want my work to speak for itself. And having a mental illness taught me how to live at a different functionality than I was used to living before I got diagnosed. And with all of that, perfectionism went out the window for me because I learned that I didn't have to be perfect. No one was asking me to be perfect. I was the only one that was putting the pressure on myself to produce perfection, a perfection that I couldn't attain, and a level of impeccableness that I couldn't achieve. So I learned that I just needed to heal and to make it through and to just grow and learn as a person and be a human being instead of a robot who is just aiming for perfectionism. So that is another lesson that I learned along the way. Lesson number 3. God is near to the brokenhearted. Now, here at Rough Edges, I strive to find the intersection between faith and mental health. And I have to say that my faith is something that helps me during my battle with mental illness. And this lesson comes from a verse in the Bible, Psalm 34, verse 18. And it says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." And I have to say that the Lord has been with me from the very beginning, since I got diagnosed and even now. He is there to help me and to guide me through this mental health journey. And without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I wouldn't even have the courage to encourage all of you to go forward and to allow God to touch your life and to allow his plan to come into fruition in your life. So that is just another lesson that I want to share with you all today. Lesson number 4. Talking about mental illness does not make you a burden. I cannot stress how important that lesson is. For so long, I believed that I was a burden whenever I spoke about my mental health with other people. Even though it was my friends and family, I still thought that I was burdening them with my story whenever I shared it. Even having a podcast, I thought maybe I shouldn't go too heavy on the mental health stuff. Maybe I should just leave it at the faith stuff and just not worry about mental health too much. Because if I talk too much about my mental health, it'll seem like I'm attention seeking. It'll seem like I'm a burden. It'll seem like I'm whiny and complaining. So let me just keep that part hidden. But after much prayer and after consulting with a few close friends and family, I realized that my story has the potential to change lives and that I shouldn't be afraid to share my burdens, to share and be vulnerable with other people, because that is what's going to help build community and to also heal others. So I am just happy that I decided to share my story with the world because people need to hear this. And I want to encourage you today that no matter who is listening, no matter who you think would judge you or wouldn't care about your story, all of that doesn't matter. What really matters is you making a difference in the life of somebody else. So if your story, by sharing it, if you touch one person, that is all that is needed. You can do this. And talking about your mental health does not make you a burden. It does not mean that you are attention seeking. And it doesn't mean that you are whining and complaining about your life. You are sharing something so valuable, which is your story, which is your testimony. So I encourage you to keep on sharing and not see yourself a burden in doing so. Number 5, not everyone will understand your journey. You know, as I was starting to get into the habit of sharing my story with other people, I realized that there were some people that just didn't understand my journey. They didn't understand because they had a certain picture of me as a person. And that image was a bit distorted for them. So they couldn't believe that I had bipolar disorder because they were so fixated on one image of me that they couldn't even fathom that I would have something like this. And I just want to tell you that if you feel alone in your journey, don't be. Because the first thing is that not everybody's going to understand where you're coming from. And that's okay. If everybody was on the same page as you and nobody had a disagreement, then that wouldn't be reality. So when those disagreements come, I assure you, and they will come, what you can do is just be open to the possibility of accepting criticism. And I know it's hard, especially when it's something as personal as your story, and you want to share it with people and they're just not as receptive as you want them to be. Just know that other people are human beings as well, and that they will have a tough time accepting your story and accepting you for who you are with this illness. And that could be anybody. That could be a family member. It could be a close friend. It could be people at church, people at your job. Whoever it may be, don't be discouraged if they don't get it. Give them some time. Give them some space to fully process what you're telling them. And just know that you are not alone. If you're not finding the right community now, don't give up hope. Don't stop fighting. Don't stop trying to find the right community, because there is a community out there for you. Just give it some time. Lesson number 6. Vulnerability is the key to creating a lasting impact. So vulnerability is something that I struggled to manage in the past. I always wanted to keep things to myself, and I always wanted to have this image of perfection, like I spoke about earlier. And I learned over the past couple years that being vulnerable is a gift that you share with other people who will also treasure that gift. I'll say that again. Being vulnerable is a gift that you share with other people who will also treasure that gift. Now, when you're being vulnerable, don't think that you could be vulnerable with every single person that you come across. You got to build some level of trust with that person so that you can be able to have that mutual understanding of what being vulnerable really means. And so, if you want to make a lasting impact, you have to be vulnerable. There's no other way to make a lasting impact than being vulnerable and being true to who you are. If you don't share a little bit of yourself, how will people know that you are real? How will people know that you are human? How will people gravitate towards the humanity that you're presenting if you don't be vulnerable? So being vulnerable is the key to being that light at the end of the tunnel for someone else. It is the key to being that role model that someone else needs in life. So I would encourage you to just be vulnerable in your journey. And with every step that you take little baby steps each day. If you have to be vulnerable to one person and you opened up to one individual, that is a perfect step in the right direction in terms of sharing your story. So always remember that being vulnerable is a gift that you share with the world, and it helps them to gravitate towards your humanity. Lesson number 7. Support systems are essential for healing. So my support systems, I have to say, my church family, my immediate family, my extended family, my close friends, and even my acquaintances are all people that I would see as my safety net and my support group. If I didn't have people in my corner to help me and to guide me through this mental health journey, I would be lost like a boat without a sail. I would be devastated, and I wouldn't be the person that I am today, because community is the thing that shapes you as a person. Community is the thing that blesses you. And it also gives you a way to see things about yourself that you never would have saw otherwise. For example, if you're having an issue and you need somebody to bounce that idea off of, you can go to somebody who you trust and be like, hey, I am having a problem with something. I need your opinion on this. And they would be able to give you a third-party perspective of the problem that's at hand. We are not an island. We need each other. And we need each other to grow. We need each other to feed off of. We need each other to be a light in each other's lives. And no better way to do that than to have a strong support system. Lesson number 8. It's okay to admit that you need help. This lesson was hard for me to learn at first because, again, being a perfectionist, I never really wanted people to help me out. I never really wanted an extra pair of hands to help me get the job done because I believed that I could get the job done without any need for anybody else's help. And that's not really a good headspace to be in. And I'm learning now, I'm still learning, but I'm learning now that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out and help somebody else as well. And when you need help, you can ask for it. You don't have to be prideful. You don't need to just make a grand experience out of it. Just go up to somebody that you trust and ask them for help. Or it could even be a professional. If you are dealing with a mental illness, I encourage you to ask help from a mental health professional. That could be a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or your primary care physician. Somebody to help you walk along the path of life. And for all of my Christians out there, ask God for help as well. And it is something that you can ask the Lord. And it's something that you can ask Him in your quiet time with Him, while you're at church, while you're on your commute to work, whenever and wherever. God is there for you, and He's there to help you. And that just not applies to Christians, but it also applies to everybody else. If you ask God for help, He will help you. He is an ever-present help in the time of storm. So never be afraid to ask for help. Lesson number 9. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself, especially when putting together your support team. So this kind of ties into lesson number 8 about asking for help. And when you get diagnosed with a mental illness, it is something that is so scary and jarring in your life that you need an appropriate support team to help guide you through it. And I cannot stress this enough. If you have been diagnosed with a mental illness, I suggest that you get a good therapist, that you also get a psychiatrist who would have diagnosed you in the first place. And I would also ask you to talk with your primary care physician to get more information about your mental illness. And don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. That's something that I'm still learning how to do, because nobody can tell you how you are feeling. You are the only one that knows how you are feeling. And if you don't speak up for yourself and tell people how you're doing and tell them what you need, no one else will do that for you. So I suggest that you speak up for yourself, especially when you're seeking treatment, because you want to make sure that you have the best treatment available for you. So I would suggest that you speak up for yourself. If something isn't working, then definitely make a note to tell somebody that it's not working. If you need to switch therapists, if you need to see another doctor, do whatever you need to do. But make sure you speak up for yourself and be bold about requesting the type of treatment that you need, because only you know how you feel. So that's my advice. Please speak up for yourself, especially when you are seeking your treatment team. And last but not least, lesson number 10. Healing takes time, but you are worth the time that it takes. So many of us feel that we are not worth the time that healing takes in our lives. And I just want to push those doubts aside and tell you that you are worth it. You are worth every minute, every second, every millisecond of healing. You are worth it because you are more than a conqueror, and you are able to carry yourself through this. And you are not alone. Just remember that God is with you. Your family is with you, even the ones that disagree. You have a support system. You have a community. If it's not your family, if it's not your friends, go look for communities. There are resources online and there are places available for you so that you can be able to talk about these things with other people. So healing does take time. I want you to remember that, because sometimes we want healing to be like a quick fix. We want instant relief, instant gratification. But that's not how it works. Healing takes time. All good things take time. And so while you're waiting, build those support groups. Build that confidence. Build that boldness to speak up for yourself. Talk about your mental illness. Don't be afraid to share it with others. And remember that your diagnosis is not the final say. It is not indicative of who you are as a person. So thank you so much for listening to those 10 lessons that I've learned. Stay tuned for more empowering episodes on Rough Edges. Thank you for listening to Rough Edges. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at Sarah I. Fox or visit my blog at sarahifox.com. If you have any questions or further suggestions for how this podcast can grow, you can email at rough.edges.podcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.